Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. فلقد نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإباد والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Alhamdulillah. So in today's session we're going to be reflecting on one of the most important components in suluk, in a person's wayfaring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's something that has what's called nafa' muta'addi. It has a benefit which transcends and goes beyond. It expands beyond one's own personal benefit. It spreads and it impacts the community and the society. It's also one of the most important components because it involves interaction with other people, and typically we know the reality of where we're at with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in accordance to the way that we respond, the way that we react to other people and the world around us. Everything ultimately is a sign that gives us some kind of indication, some kind of reflection of where we're at and who we're truly facing to. If the person is facing towards the nafs, then the response can often be very foul and off-putting. If the person is facing towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by which I mean through the power of intention, through various other practices like we've spoken about, muraqabah, deep introspection, why am I doing this, who is it for, I'm being watched by the all-aware, the Sami' al-Basir, Jalla Jalaluh, through muhasabah, going through this filtration process, you know, every night, every week. And ultimately, if a person is able to narrow it down after every act or everything that we say, why? And weighing it upon these balances, and then directing it ultimately and placing it towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, today's topic is one of the most central components to suluk, to wayfaring. In Arabic, in the Arabic language, it's called Khidma. Khadama yakhdimu. And it's often translated as service. But in the context which we're talking about now, we're not just talking about somebody, smiling at someone in a restaurant, they had some kind of good service. Because there's some kind of reciprocated, you get a tip. We're not talking about somebody that goes to get their car fixed and he said this was great service. Or was asking, somebody that does some kind of service for their country or whatever it may be. We're not talking about this. Khidma specifically has its own context in the nomenclature of the people of suluk. So we could maybe perhaps render it, without getting too kind of cumbersome with the English language, as sacred service. Khidma inherently it has to be for Allah. It has to be for Allah. And as we've learned throughout the series, doing something for the sake of Allah is not just saying that we're doing something for the sake of Allah. It follows a trajectory, it follows a path, it follows coordinates. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. So there are many, many merits to khidma. And we're just going to reflect on one particular hadith. That the Prophet ﷺ, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, من نفس عن مؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة ومن يسر على معسر يسر الله عليه في الدنيا والآخرة ومن ستر مسلما ستره الله في الدنيا والآخرة والله في عون العبد ما كان العبد في عون أخيه. So the one that نفس على مسلم, نفس ينفس, It's a source of respite or solace, makes things easy for people. And that can mean something, just counseling someone, listening to someone. Sometimes the best khidma we can do is just to shut up, just to absolutely keep quiet and listen. So to man nafasa ala mu'minin, the one that makes things easy for a believer. When they have some kind of kurba. A kurba is like a calamity, something which has befallen them. They're in some kind of distress, some kind of catastrophe, some kind of difficulty, some kind of thing they're going through in their lives. If you're a means to make that easy, often people misunderstand the nature of the sunnah, and their advice of sabr is it actually translates bilisan al-hal is, I really can't be bothered with this right now. I'm going through some difficulties, maybe we could spend some time together, maybe we could avoid. And few people are going to ask that anyway, so you have to intuit it. But if someone ever does do that, it's going to be like, I'm kind of busy, sabr, maybe just have some patience. And that's the opposite of what the Prophet ﷺ was calling to. The one that nafasa, just allows a person to give someone some breathing space, allows the person just to exhale. Because so much of the dunya, they talk about if a person's under stress, that their breathing rate starts to increase, and that they're shallow breaths, they're not deep breaths. So just allowing a person to exhale can be so therapeutic for a person. And just allowing a person to speak can be a great way to serve them in that which they're in. It was really nice just to speak to you. It just I got a lot off my chest. And there's not enough of this in our communities. A lot of the time we think, we'll rush to the verse of the Quran or to the Hadith, which is informing us about how we should be in our own selves. If we're bestricken or some kind of difficulty falls in our life, of course we counsel ourselves to have sabr. And we counsel other people, but the way in which we counsel other people, often it's the opposite way around. Nobody's being nice to me, nobody's being gentle with me, everyone's being harsh with me, they're just telling me to have sabr. And then when it's the other way around, and this is part of the prophetic sunnah of empathy, not to be, sometimes empathy can be condescending, and that's not prophetic. And when is it condescending? Is when it's done for other than the sake of Allah. It's disingenuous, it's not real. Like, oh, you'll be fine, don't worry. You're almost as good as saying, I don't really care, go away. It's not going to help someone. And people intuit that. Sometimes it's so hard for people to admit that. Like, I know you don't care, but yeah, okay, inshallah. But if you can really care for people, nafas, Allah makes something easier, some kind of kurba. And that can be anything. And sometimes what might be difficult for us may not be difficult for other people. And sometimes what might be difficult for other people may not be difficult for us. Because we all have different circumstances, different lives. And, different, experiences within the world. And someone would be like, I've got this really big problem. When you look into it, maybe it's not the biggest thing going. But you're not going to say, well, there's nothing really to be worried about. You've got to, be genuinely empathetic to people. So, you can be strong. Come on, we can get over this. Let's just, There's some people, mashallah, some of the greatest da'wah, that, the most effective da'wah, and really inviting people back to presence with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They just go out and invite someone for something to eat. And it's not just, let me just pounce upon you and regurgitate everything I know, and just go on. Just buy someone a coffee. Just be nice. Be human. Often we're trying to connect people to the highest. We've got to understand what da'wah is. It takes time. It took the Prophet 23 years. And you've got to win people's hearts over. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the one that makes some kind of alleviates some kind of difficulty. And that's a huge scope. So many things. Min kurubi dunya. For someone of the dunya, within this world. Nafasallah anhu kurbatan min kurubi yawm al-qiyamah. Allah alleviates some kind of difficulty from the difficulties, or the challenges, or the stresses, and the intensities of Yawm al-Qiyamah. So if we're looking to do something for someone as well, we have to understand ultimately we're doing ourselves a favor. And then the Prophet ﷺ continued, وَمَنْ يَسَّرَ عَلَى مُعْسِرٍ يَسَّرَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Yassara literally means to facilitate or make things easy, but the mu'sir is also someone that's difficult. They don't really have much money. They're a bit tight for cash, and maybe they're shy, or maybe they're not able to, to even ask. But if someone's in a state of relative ease, and they have like surplus money, you have this whole culture now in some parts of the West where Muslims are just going out for like luxurious meals on a weekly basis. Really, like big steaks and like expensive luxury food. And there are people maybe in real need, that maybe their neighbors, maybe family members, And we're not saying don't partake in it, per se. But there needs to be at the very least some kind of balance if we're going to keep it real with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to make things easy, if someone's got some kind of debt, debt can be a huge heaviness on a person. It's one of the things that spiritually it's very difficult for a person to progress, and mature spiritually if they're laden with debt, because it ties you to the dunya. So if someone's able to fulfill this kind of thing, qada hajj, it's one of the greatest things that you can do. The difficulty of someone in this life and the next. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes things easy, open things up for him in their rizq, in their well-being, their afiyah. All of these things have a reciprocal effect. It's almost as if we're doing it for ourselves. In this life and the next. وَمَنْ سَتَرَ مُسْلِمًا سَتَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. And the one that, this is a really interesting concept within our faith. Sitr, veiling, concealing. If you conceal the sins of others, the uyub, the pitfalls, or when we fall, the shortcomings of a Muslim, then Allah will conceal you on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Often that's one of the dawafi'. It's like an impetus to backbite, because it makes the person feel better, like such and such has this problem, therefore I'm free of it. And if you're able to veil a person in the most subtle a way, and sometimes there's an opportunity to backbite, there's an opportunity to speak bad about someone, but in that time, if you are in the form of sitr, even in necessity, if sometimes if you ask for fatwa, it may be it's not considered backbiting, but there's still an etiquette, because you could really try and expose someone in asking for a fatwa. There's a bit of leeway, a bit of leg room now, it's not really backbiting, but it's different if you have a kind of an adab, an inbuilt adab, because you're not doing it just because it's a good opportunity. Now I can really backbite and fulfill what my ego wants to do. Satarahullah fi dunya wal akhirah. Allah conceals him in this life and the next. And there are different forms of divine concealment. Sometimes a person could be yafdah, waliyadu billah, could be exposed before people in the most grievous of ways. If a person exposes someone, they'll be exposed. This is one of the things that we should always be really careful of. So if you take the opposite approach and actively try and conceal people's faults. Now it's an interesting thing now, because we've got these, once again, these kind of new words that are creeping in within our communities, or concepts of the idea of sweeping things under the carpet, And there's a big difference, because Islam always empowers a person, and they're always able to seek justice. It's not say, well, you just have sabr if you've been wronged. No, that's for that person to decide. However, within the deen, they have the ability to redress that, given the appropriate legal implications to what's involved to any particular case, whatever. Yeah. Wallahu fi awn al-abd ma kana al-abdu fi awn akhihi. And Allah is in the awn, is in the assistance of his servants. for as long as his servant is in the assistance of his brother. So this is why a lot of the time the people of Allah would have a wird, would have literally a spiritual practice, like a checklist. Am I in some form of khidmah right now? When I wake up in the morning, is there something that I'm doing that's serving people, that's helping people? Maybe some form of sadaqah, maybe just by mere intention, and there are many ways to do this. So one of the greatest merits of this is it cultivates the spirit of self-sacrifice. Because true khidmah, it has no hadh al-nafs, and that's why it's the hardest thing. There is no place for the ego. Sometimes there are forms of khidmah where you kind of get your own something nice out of it. Maybe some kind of praise, maybe some kind of recognition, maybe some kind of bonus, you know. I'll just go and give khidmah to, you know, the Sheykh, and then you get in on the after party where it's like a big banquet and there's, you know, where's the, you know, and the people of Allah are very attentive to those subtleties. You know, because what they want is recognition from Allah, Jalla Jalaluh. And of its greatest fruits is the cultivation of prophetic community. If you cultivate a community of people which are selfless and are able to sacrifice, and they don't even see that sacrifice, then people's hearts start to mend together. And it's therapeutic for the entire community. People start to work together. Because the nafs, whereas before they're all kind of jagged, prickly, and difficult, they don't like being around, they repel each other. They become smoothed off like pebbles in the ocean. And they start to glide and go together nice, and they enjoy each other's company. They flow. There's not that prickliness, you know, when the nafs are together, because everyone has an awareness that they're now in a safe zone. You know? And this is why a lot of the time when you'd find this kind of spirit within traditional cultures, that people wouldn't always even have an understanding of please and thank yous. We have this in English. Remember your please and thank yous. Now, it wasn't seen as bad adab in traditional cultures not to say please or thank you, because there was this unspoken flow that I know this is from your heart. It's actually honoring the person. It's a very subtle thing. You know, but sometimes it's, oh, thank you so much, this kind of over the top kind of thankfulness. That wasn't the way of traditional cultures. They would take it, bismillah, and get on with what they're doing. You know? And then when the time for praise came, it would be in something meaningful. But everyone's working for Allah. Everyone's got their sights on Allah. They're not, why didn't they say thank you? Why didn't they hold the door open for me? Why did they not, you know, this is really important. It's not just the way we do things outwardly as Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ did something outwardly, but inwardly, we're going to take kind of another worldview. Well, I did that sunnah, I did my khidmah, why are they not going to thank me for it? That's not connected, and not the adab of khidmah. So, if we look about the impact on the heart and the soul, khidmah, serving people. It's a sign of humility, tawadu'. وَمَنْ تَوَاضَعَ لِلَّهِ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ. The one that humbles themselves before Allah, Allah will raise him. But in order to maintain this, we have to constantly understand who is it for. Khidmah is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And why? Why are we doing this? Come on. So it has to come from this seed of love. Khidmah is one of the signs of love. You know, only the real lovers can be sincere and consistent in the khidmah. Because after a point, if it's just for show, it's going to wear thin and the cracks are going to show. It's only the people that have real love that are able to be consistent in their khidmah. There was in Yemen, one of the people who's just renowned for always serving people. They even say about him, if you want to find where he is, go and look for someone that's in need, and you'll find him. He's already beat you to it. He's already helping someone. And there was a trip to another region where they typically go for a visit with the school, and requires a lot of khidma, like lifting and, you know, water barrels and food and, you know, driving up and down, because it's mountainous as well. It's difficult. It requires a lot of physical exertion. And then news came back, because this person was working non-stop, and so everyone was like, subhanAllah. News came back that along the way, they'd actually been involved in a car crash and broken about 3 or 4 ribs. You know? But even that didn't stop him. He just carried on doing it. Now someone could say, well, that's just a bit silly, that's a bit excessive. Maybe you should have calmed down, you should have gone, just put yourself into a nice hospital and just, you know, you'd have had an udhr. And it's an interesting thing as well. Many people are very much aware of the a'dhar, of the excuses in the sharia. Like, well, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this sunnah. It's only sunnah, you know. There's a permissibility not to attend in this kind. It's all, people are like experts, like muftis, in the a'dhar, the excuses, the get-out clauses, the loopholes, you know. Subhanallah. But that's not love. Yeah, I can't really come round tonight because I'm busy and I'm doing, okay. You know, there's relationships and connections, you know, if it's with love, you're the first one there. It doesn't have to be a reason, you know. And when the verse of Isma came down, it was revealed, Wallahu ya'asimuka minan nas. Allah will protect you from the people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's this divine protection now over the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there always was. But they took the asbab and the means, and prior to this there was a security. There were people that would guard the dwellings of the Prophet ﷺ at night. And when the verse was revealed, that many of the Sahaba went back home. And there was one man that was waiting. And the Prophet ﷺ came out and he spoke to the man. And he said, have you not heard the verse that's been revealed? He said, Bala ya Rasulullah, I've heard the verse, ya Rasulullah. Yes. وَلَكِنْ مَا وَقَفْتُ لِأَجْلِ الْحِرَاسَةِ. I've not remained with the intention of just guarding you. Allah has always protected you. Like, you don't need me to guard you. That's not the reason why I'm still here. But my intention, ya Rasulullah, is if you're in any need, you have anything, any kind of khidmah you need, that I'm the closest of your ummah to you. Like, I'm the first one to be there to serve. The Prophet ﷺ smiled until they described his face coming like a piece of the full moon, like it radiated with brightness. And the Prophet ﷺ said, ask whatever you will. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, can you give me a minute? It's a good opportunity. You got the Messenger of Allah who's, all of the Sahaba knew that when the Prophet ﷺ raised his hands, it's over. Khalas. Like when the people of Daws in Yemen, the people of Abu Hurairah, when they delayed in their Islam and they didn't listen to it, you know. And then he went back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, that they're not answering the call. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam raised his hands, and he said, "Halaka Daws." He goes, "They're dead." He thought the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was raising his hands against them. But look at the power of what they understood, like, just because they saw it in everything in their lives. You know, this human being that was enveloped in divine grace. Everything he did, if he turned to Allah, those hands were being raised by Allah to ask him. You know, Rasulullah says, so he says, "Halaka Daws." People of Daws, they're dead, they're gone. Oh well. And he says, Allah mahdi Daws wahdi bihim muslimin. Oh Allah, guide the people of Daws and bring them as Muslims. Bring them in as Muslims. And they all became Muslim. You know, dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sahaba are experiencing it all the time. And when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, ask. You know, he says, give me some time, Ya Rasulullah. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, kunna fi jahiliyatin wa shar. We were just in complete ignorance. and evil. Like our whole world was just wrong, upside down. We knew nothing. There's no light, there's no guidance. And Allah guided us through you. So what am I to ask of the dunya? I've got nothing to ask of this world. But if I'm to ask you of anything, Ya Rasulullah, I ask to be with you. أسألك مرافقتك في الجنة. I ask to be with you in Jannah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, assist me against yourself, in yourself, بكثرة السجود. It's praying a lot. Keep that connection alive. Keep that connection increasing, and that will help me to help you to get to where you want to be. Sayyid al-Sajideen sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the master of all those that ever prostrated sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In other ways, follow my way and you'll be with me. Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab. So who is it for and why? It has to be for love. And one of the techniques, if you like, in Khidma, because sometimes maybe there are people that are in need of us and we don't know who they are, and they can't reciprocate us with anything, neither of this world nor the next, as far as we're aware of. And the scholars say we should have a portion of our wird, of our time, serving those people. It's not just around those people where there's some kind of prestige, or there's some kind of worldly or otherworldly gain, something that cannot benefit you, as far as you're aware, in any way, to serve them. Why? Because then it's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reward. Allah alone knows. There's a way of doing that. Now the way to maintain that is to connect your intention to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ya Rasulullah, I'm doing this for you. This is for you. And serving the inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ is also service of him. I was commanded to treat people in accordance to their status, their manazil, their ranks. And we can say, well, that doesn't sound very democratic. It sounds kind of hierarchical. We're not talking about some kind of like 18th century European aristocratic, societal kind of thing. Like I'm only with the rich people. The Prophet system was most time with the poor. But what we're talking about is he would honor people, a'yan al-balad, people who were chieftains of their tribes, people who were revered in their clans, in their tribes, and also those people of spiritual status, min bab awla, first and foremost. So to bring to heart and to bring to mind, to focus that intentionality. When you see an opportunity for khidmah, Ya Rasulullah, this is for you. And people say, well, I thought it was supposed to be for Allah. Is someone going to do anything for the Prophet except it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We do it with the intention of entering happiness into his heart, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'll give us tawfiq, inshallah. So what are the types of khidmah? What are the ways to serve? Firstly, we've got to look in terms of our spheres of influence. Because often when we're talking about, we need to serve the Muslims, we need to serve the Ummah, and everything becomes very epic. And the scholars say that's actually a sign of hawa. That's a symptom of ego coming in and getting, delusions of grandeur. Everything becomes so epic. Start with that which you can affect. And that's part of the nature of adab. You work with what you've got until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes that sphere of influence or that sphere of service to extend and to flow. And the example for that is the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The greatest form of khidmah is to call people and invite people back to reality and the truth and to teach them the ahkam and the knowledge of their deen. There's no greater khidmah because it's of benefit to them in their deen, in their dunya and their akhirah, their eternity. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he came back, he called his immediate family. And this is part of the principle by which we take who are those people in our homes. You know. And it wasn't like, well, I'm teaching you high realities and stuff and I'm just going to kick back and, you know, be lazy. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was in the house, they said he almost never noticed him, so to speak, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, he'd be sat in his house, you know, mending his sandals, you know, taking care. He took care of himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't expect other people to serve him in this way, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then we look to our neighbours, you know, to whatever we're able to do. And the scholars have mentioned as well, like just how bad it's become. Like we don't even know our neighbours, let alone able to serve them in the basis, even if they're Muslim. You know. And especially in lands where they're not Muslim. You know. And we need to be careful because we need to navigate things. A lot of the time we can see and misjudge someone. Maybe they think this of me. You know, they never respond to me when I greet them. Well, you know, that may not be because they hate you. It may be, but it may not be. And here's the thing, even if it is, it's our duty to change that, to serve in that, because we're not judged in accordance to other people's view of us. We're judged in accordance to that which we do. This is beautiful story, subhanAllah. One of the brothers mentioned it in the UK some time ago, that there was a brother that moved down from the north of England to the south, and there was an area where there just weren't many Muslims. And it was an area where you could say people had some kind of tendencies, prejudicial tendencies, or, you know, at least that was the generalization. And he moved there with his elderly mother. So he goes to he moves into his house, and the whole time the family on the other end of the road are hurling racial abuse. The whole time. And his mother's elderly and she doesn't speak English. You know, his father's passed away, he doesn't have any other siblings, and he's there just taking care in Khidma of his mother. And she becomes afraid. She said, like, what are they doing? And he kind of, like, in a gentle way, he doesn't lie, but he kind of says, they're greeting us. They're just saying, it's just their way, they're a bit rough, but don't worry, you go inside. And he just takes care of his mum, you know. And this goes on for a period of time, and the abuse continues. And then he comes back home from work one day, and she's carrying like a tray of food, like home-baked food. And he's like, mashallah, like, who's this for? And he's like, it's for these wonderful neighbours that have always been greeting us, you know, every time we go past. And he's like, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. She goes, you need to go and give it to the neighbours. You know? And he's like, you know, a dutiful son, because his mum, what's he going to do? He can't say no. And she spent the whole day preparing. You know, she didn't understand the nature of the context of the situation. He's like, what do okay, I've got to do it. He's getting ready for the consequences. So he knocks on the door. The guy opens the door, and like in a harsh way, he's like, what do you want? You know, or words to that effect. And he says, look, you don't have to accept it, but I'm just a messenger. Like my mum made this food for you, and she just thought it'd be nice because you're our neighbours. And the guy starts crying. Like, this guy is like, what? Like, as if no one's ever shown him that kind of response before. No one's shown him that kind of kindness. He's like, what? And he said, this is, my mum made it. You don't have to take it, like, because he's thinking, like, what's going to happen? And the guy takes it, and he's like, you know, yeah. And he's almost overwhelmed. It's like what they call cognitive dissonance. Like, what? It's such a sharp paradigm shift. Because typically a lot of people, why are they harsh? Because people have been harsh to them. And a lot of the time it's just like a survival tactic. You know? And Iman is from Aman. And the people of Iman are people of Aman. The people of Iman, faith and true rooted belief and certainty, are people of safety. People feel safe around them. That's the way that we should be. People should feel that we're there, we're to serve and to make you feel safe. Not just physically, but mentally and spiritually, in every way. Like we're not here to harm, you know. And, subhanAllah, like sometime after, they said like a few weeks or a month, the whole family ended up becoming Muslim. You know. And, here's the thing, that's an amazing thing. And there'll be times when maybe the response is not like that. Maybe the person will throw the stuff out in the lawn, or maybe whatever it may be. Maybe they don't become Muslim. That's the thing. We're not doing it so you become Muslim. Like, you can take this, but only if you take your shahada. That's not da'wah. Da'wah is an invitation. And that unspoken thing, like, just welcome to this place of safety. Welcome. This is our way. You've shown us your way. Our way is one of khidma. And I'm not expecting anything in return. لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شَكُورًا. I don't want any recompense from you. I don't want any gratitude. I don't want a pat on the back. I don't want anything. This is just our way. This is the way Rasulullah was. And this is what we've got to be. Because the Prophet ﷺ was always in khidmah, always serving people, all the time. If anyone came to ask him a question, I'm busy right now. No, he was there to serve. And we really need to be in that kind of frame of mind. So with our companions, those people, how can we serve the people around us? And to learn that attentiveness, like to be aware, before someone asks for something, to be the first one to do it. Anyone that spends time with the Sheykh and the people of Allah, you'll notice this about them. They have this ability just to help people out. Even like, wow, I kind of wanted that. We've got this thing as well, like it's one could say it's a cultural thing, but it's not necessarily very cultured. And in some ways, I get it. If people are close and friends, like if you're going to ask someone for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee to go around to your house, maybe you ask because maybe they don't want one, but that's a different dynamic. But typically, when anyone would go to a Muslim household, you don't ask, you just give. Like the experience of anyone entering into the presence of the people of Islam and Iman, they should taste generosity whether they want it or not. They're just giving. It's like, wow, they're just giving. And it's not that we're wasteful. Trust me, like, people take care of the cake. It won't go to waste. But it's an amazing thing. And it's not like, it's kind of putting me out. It's a bit difficult for me right now, but I can make you something. It wasn't the best time for you to come. No, it's like, it's an honor for me to serve you. That's what we have to have the paradigm shift in. That's real khidmah. Like, it is an honor for me to serve you. It's an honor for me to serve you. Just like the adab in giving zakat. It's the same principle. So much of our deen is just changing the paradigm and taking it back to what's real. It's not like, oh, there you go, some condescending, like you don't, the adab is so beautiful. You don't put your hand on the top, run along now. It's condescending. You imagine how someone feels, like a'udhu billah. Like the adab, when you hand someone something in Islam and you serve them, is you do it from the lower hand, not give from the top, from the lower hand, please. Like, it would be an honor for me for you to take this from me. That is one of the most powerful things, really. So khidmah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people of khidmah. So there are adab, there are etiquettes. And one of the most important of the adab, of the etiquettes and sacred courtesies of sacred khidmah, is in order to render it sacred, it has to be for the sake of Allah. We have to really think about our intention. Why am I doing what I'm doing? As we spoke about in the session on intentionality, if you want to be in khidmah to someone and serve someone, then don't lose out. Sit and prepare and, make intentions, And sometimes the khidmah can be difficult. And sometimes the most abrasive on the nafs is the most reward. One time one of the Sheykh was asked in this regard, like sometimes things can be really difficult. Like, khidmah is not all sweet. It can be really difficult. And one of the shuyukh was asked, what do you do if it just becomes too wearing? Because sometimes khidmah is not pretty. There are people, they're in difficulty. Someone has abuse problems, marital problems, drugs, alcohol, mental illness, psychological illness. These things are heavy. And one of the things we have to do also is know our lane. Because sometimes the khidmah is to signpost. Not to think you can be all things to all people. Well, yeah, sure, of course I can perform open surgery on you. Khidmah, not khidmah. Go to the people of ikhtisas, the people of expertise. But if you are able to help people, and sometimes we are able to help people in things which are just not that much fun. And the way to maintain that state of lightness and connection back to Allah, he said, make dhikr of Allah before, during, and after. And that's the kind of one of the signs of the people of Iman. Whenever they're involved in something, they're always in dhikr, whatever they're doing. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. You start something up with intentionality. You end in gratitude and dua. You seal it and you put it back to Allah, and that gives you that ability to keep on keeping on, so you don't burn out. And in terms of the adab al-zahira, the outward adab, or that which manifests, is to do things with beauty, to do things with ihsan, to do things with itqan. And sometimes we can see these things as being a bit over the top, let's say. But there's a way of even handing a glass to someone. Subtleties like that. And real suluk is all about the subtleties, because the attention to detail is indicative of the state of consciousness of the heart. I just do it, whatever's, this will do type attitude. It's subtle things, like when you hand a glass, typically they'll turn the handle round. Now, really, it's not going to be that much of a big deal just to spin the glass, but just to do that so it's easier for the person to take. And just placing things before people, just that subtle attention to detail. When you place things down, when you're welcoming people, when you're inviting people, how endearing are you? How beautiful is it being done? Are you doing it for you? Is it just for some kind of self-gratification? Like, please come to my iftar. It's the grandest iftar on the street. And everyone's like, no thanks. But if you're doing it for the sake of Allah, of course people don't want to partake of that kind of barakah. Here's the thing, whether it's service in terms of diyafa, welcoming people in, you don't have to be people of takalluf. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ana wa sulaha ummati bari' min at-takalluf." I and the truly righteous people with real righteousness, not just self-righteousness or fake piety, people that are really real with Allah, from my ummah are bari', they're free from the illness of takalluf. They have no takalluf. There's no false pretense. There's no fakeness. There's no keeping up with the Joneses. Many of our shuyukh, if they were invited around to someone came around to their house, they'd give them a glass of water and a bowl of dates. And filled with intentions and goodwill and love and warmth, and because that's all they could afford. It wasn't as though they were having a banquet in the next room when the person goes. They gave that which they had. But it wasn't like, oh no, we can't be seen just to be giving dates. What's the rest of the congregation going to be saying, after Taraweeh, or whenever it is? We're doing it for Allah. And here's the thing, if people start backbiting that you haven't given the greatest banquet going, you don't need those kind of friends anyway. And if your intention is for the sake of Allah and it's done on the way of the Prophet ﷺ, typically that will be a means to change people's hearts. SubhanAllah, that person just gave of what, they're always open. They're always ready to serve, whatever they can do. It's more of a state of being and the quality rather than the quantity. They didn't give very much. What kind of effort is this? Maybe it was a lot. SubhanAllah. And it's these small things which touch people's hearts. Wallahu a'lam. One of our shuyukh, he said that man khadam qadam. The one that serves proceeds, like traverses forward. You know, Sayyid al-Qawm khadimahum. The Sayyid, the master of a people's, is their khadim. You know, and they often say, "Kam min mutakallim fi barakat sakit." How many a speaker in a majlis or in a gathering or wherever is just riding off the barakah, the blessing of a person, a quiet person, you know, inconspicuous, but it's through them that all this barakah and light and guidance is flowing. You know. So every single one of us, we're all components of a greater body. You know, there are some people, they're the eyes, some people, they're the mouth, some people, they're the heart, some people, they're the mind, some people are the hands, some people are the feet, some people are the strength, the different things. But we need to work together and to be people of khidma. You know, this is how the Sahaba were described. They were always in khidma of each other, always serving each other. And we need to look out for this and spread that within ourselves. So in a practical sense, what we can do when we go home, if we're already home, we're tuning in on the live stream, we can start straight away, inshallah. We can look around and think, what can I do to serve right now? Even if it's washing one plate, fi sabilillah. Don't push the boat out. You know, start small, but these small things to do it. And the sign of futur, or being lazy, is a sign that the intention is gravitating away from Allah. The sign that it's gravitating towards Allah and deepening is that you have more zeal, more, you know, energy. فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. And if you get freed up, fansab, get on with another act of ibadah. Re-engage with worship. Keep on going. The marathon's over. Nope. Okay, keep on going. وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. And unto your Lord, you know, be desirous. Be ready. Be energized. Be revitalized. Go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. This is such an important thing. Really important thing. Khidma. Because it shows us where we're at, what we're willing to do for other people, what we're willing to sacrifice for other people. You know, and this is a big sign of a person's place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, and it's a big sign of humility. And sometimes a person, as the Prophet alluded to, they can be incredibly knowledgeable, but if they're not able to humble themselves, if they have kibr and arrogance, it's very difficult to serve other people. And one of the ways, the therapies for quelling and causing arrogance to go from someone's heart and pride is to start to serve other people, because it breaks you down. You know, we've mentioned previously as well. You've seen like in Tareem, like the way they give khidmah, even like serving the tea. It's very like it's almost like they don't exist. They're just like this, like, you know, thing that just isn't really there, and this glass, they're just a conduit to bring the glass and it goes down, and they're not like, there you go, from me to you, see me, sahib al-khidmah, the person of khidmah to give to you. And it just flows so beautifully, you know, throughout the society, and they really come together, you know. The Prophet praised the Yemenis. He said that like if they're in some kind of difficulty, you know, when things become difficult, they don't go and stock up and store up themselves. It's not every man for himself. The Prophet didn't find that impressive. What did he say? Ash'ariyin, the Yemenis, when they came, he said they put all of their things together and they distribute it amongst each other, just so everyone has enough. Everyone's taken care of. Everyone's looked after. If you're looked after, that's what makes me happy. You know, so where are we at in that regard? And in these times, we need to understand that Allah is testing people, and Allah is showing people, you know, whereas Allah's, this fitna is there, that conduit to take out the blemishes, to reveal the true gold. Is there any real gold in there, or is it just a lump of mud in earth that's just going to go to haba and mansura, like dust scattered if it's crushed? You know, when you put pressure on something, if you turn up the heat, that's when people's true attributes and true, you know, qualities really start to come out. And this is an opportunity not to show other people, you know, let me show everyone else what a wonderful person I really have been all along. That is not what's meant. You know, now's the time to turn to Allah. Now's the time to keep it real with Allah. What's the state of our hearts in these times? You know, what are we exposing our hearts to? Even in recent times, if we've exposed ourselves more to these teachings, the outward and inward benefit would be way more than if we're just, feeding ourselves with that which has no benefit, neither here, nor here, nor here, nor anywhere else. Hold on to the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tamassak, hold on firm, because this is our, salvation in this life and the next. And what's hoped for the people of sincerity is not only salvation, but sanctification. People become illuminated. People become people of deep, deep consciousness. People of wilayah. People of sainthood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's in these times when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mountains. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us firm, keep us connected to the gatherings of knowledge. Alhamdulillah for the blessing of live stream. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow these streams of consciousness to be, disinfected and detoxed, so the light flows through these streams. There are many types of stream. One level is just some fiber, and then it's some other stuff that I don't know about, tech. But the real streams that we need to be aware of is the streams into our heart. What are we allowing into our heart? What are we exposing ourselves to? What are we plugging ourselves into? What are we, detoxing from? And now there's no excuse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting it right before every single one of us. Many people have to make a lot of decisions right now. Where are we at with our iman? So may Allah make us people of Khidma. It's expected that these opportunities will only increase. And we need to be people who are selfless, people who sacrifice, people that give to our loved ones, our families, our neighbors, our communities, our societies. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. We don't want any recognition. We don't want any kind of, wow, this wonderful, remember the time of that crisis? Let's give him a medal. Let's give her a trophy and let's put her in the paper. We don't want any of that. We don't want any recognition. And some of the greatest imams of this ummah, the greatest masters of this ummah, there are things which they did that nobody will ever know. They were so careful that it was only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when it's done for Allah, it's rooted deep, and its effect and its fruits spread far and wide, and nobody ever knows. It's like Imam Shafi'i, one of his du'as was that he never gets recognized for the knowledge that he spread. And what's interesting, they say even in the gatherings of fiqh where the madhab of Imam Shafi'i is taught, it's not that frequent that Imam Shafi'i's name is mentioned. It's people within his school that are mentioned. They say that's one of the signs of his da'wah, but it's all through his codification, it's all through his founding of this school. And that's in fiqh. How much has he served us? How much has Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, all of these great a'imma, have they served us? And we're not aware. And all of them take from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How much is the Prophet still serving us right now? That time at Ta'if, what did he undergo? What sacrifice? 3 years out in the mountains, living off foliage, like leaves, just so we could be here and we could learn. So we've got to take on the baton. We've got to take it on. And we've got to carry on. And we've got to carry this message. It's Allah's work. It's not our work. It's Allah's work. And Allah will choose us, and Allah doesn't have to choose us. And we want to be chosen for this because there's no other way. The way is to be turned away, and we don't want that. We want to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the only way to do that is to come to Allah with no nafs. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the barakah of the salihin and the righteous people and the people that have been accepted by Allah, may Allah accept every single one of us, everyone that's tuned into this live stream, everyone that's watching bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and the entire ummah, ya Rabbil Alameen. May Allah turn us back to Him to be people of khidmah, to serve Him, Jalla Jalal, to serve His deen, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to serve His beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be people of service to our families and our loved ones, and those people that we know and the people that we don't know. Just to be people of sadaqah and giving and bestow. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to get rid of the shuh and the miserliness of our souls, and to be people who are able to give. The more you give, the more you'll be replaced with. If you keep still and stagnant, you'll start to fester and the water goes putrid. The more you give, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will replace that with. So may Allah keep us in that constant flow of pure light and nur from Him, Jalla Jalaluh. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.